Hi all, this is Nelly, Ordinary People Saintly Souls channel, reading from the visions of Maria Valtorta. And right now we are at the road to Golgotha, where Jesus has to carry the cross up to Golgotha. And after reading what Maria Valtorta saw, I can only decide that the women were much braver than most of the men. Because, the apostles had almost all ran away, apart from John. He had stayed. And a lot of the followers of Jesus had left, they had fled. But the women are all near the cross. A lot of his women followers, they come out and they follow him all the way to the top of Golgotha, which is at the top of a hill. And they try to console him, and they try to especially also support and console his mother, who is really besides herself with grief. And at the same time, we see again the role of Longinus, the Roman centurion that Jesus described as a good man. Because, in the first century, if you were a soldier or a leader in the army, what choice did you have? I mean, there was no upward mobility like we have today. So you were what you were, and your task was what it was. And often you had no choice but to complete it, to fulfill it. And Jesus understood that, and he also understood, and we can see that all the way Longinus tries to help Jesus as much as he can in the terrible circumstances that they are both in. And well, it starts with the time that they have to go. The other two prisoners are brought. They have not been whipped or scourged. Their bodies are fine and are not bleeding all over. And all three prisoners have to start lifting their cross and carrying it. But Longinus stops for a minute, and he hands Jesus his canteen with a drink. I think it is water mixed with honey. And he asks Jesus if he is thirsty and that he would like Jesus to drink something, because he says the sun is shining and the way is long. And Jesus replies, "May God reward you for your compassion, but do not deprive yourself of it." "Oh, I'm healthy and strong," says Longinus. "I'm not depriving myself. And even if I were, I would like to do this to help you. Please take a sip to show me you do not hate heathens." So then Jesus no longer refuses and takes a sip. It says actually a draught, but I don't think we use that word very much anymore. And his hands are no longer tied, but you can see where the ropes were, hurting them, wounding them. And Longinus wants him to take more. He says, "It will give you strength and it will quench your thirst, because I really feel pity for you. It was not you who was to be killed among the Jews. Who knows? I do not hate you, and I will try to make you suffer only what is necessary." But Jesus no longer wants to drink anything, although he's really thirsty. And of course he has lost a lot of blood and he has fever. But he wants to suffer to the utmost degree. And that is why he also wants to be thirsty to the utmost degree. And but he has compassion for Longinus, so he complies with him by drinking something from his honey and water. And he says, "May God reward you with his blessings for his solace." And he smiles. So then they are lining up. They kind of, what she describes, they make a formation of a square with soldiers in front, soldiers on the side, and soldiers in the back. And in the middle are the three prisoners. And the reason that there is such an assembly or such a formation is that the people, the crowd, cannot burst in and harm the prisoners, because the crowd keeps throwing stones and keeps trying to attack, especially Jesus. And they also tie the board with the inscription, Jesus Nazarene, King of the Jews, around his neck, because that was decreed by Pilate. And so they start to march, and the first steps are 3 steps down from the platform, and which is very difficult for Jesus because he's carrying this heavy cross and he almost falls, he staggers. And the board with the inscription sways around his neck, which makes it very difficult for him to maneuver. And the crowd sees him stagger and laughs at him and accuses him of being drunk. And they scream, push him, make him fall in the dust, the blasphemer. But the soldiers don't do that. They do what they have to do, and as they are ordered. And Longinus then wants to take the shortest route to the shortest way to Golgotha. But the crowd prevents him from doing that, and the reason is that it is not legal. They scream, you must not do that, you must not do that, it's not legal. The law prescribes that condemned men are to be sent in the town where they sinned. And that is a big detour with a cross on your back. And so to keep the peace, Longinus turns along the way that they want him to go and starts walking towards the town. But after a short distance, he turns away from that road and does take a second shortcut. And he ignores the crowd by then. But Jesus is panting the whole way, and each hole in the ground is a trap for him. He staggers, his soldiers are covered with wounds, and his head, remember, is crowned with that crown made of thorns. And the sun is getting very hot. It's beginning to be the middle of the day, and so he is extremely tired, he's exhausted, he has a fever, and he's overheated. And they still keep throwing stones, and they try to give him blows, they try to hit him. And the soldiers defend him as best as they can. But Jesus is panting more and more, and the sweat is streaming down his face and his whole body. And it drips into the wounds, and it hurts him terribly. And at times he falls, and then the crowd shouts, leave him. He used to say to everybody, rise, let him rise now. And so he staggers twice, and at one point the road ends and they actually have to go up, because Calvary is a hill, so they have to go up. And there the road has no shade at all. It is barren. The stones, the paths are uneven, and it goes straight up the hill. And so that is more and more difficult. The weight of the cross becomes unbearable. It was already unbearable. And the board swings in front of Jesus and obstructs his sight. And now his tunic is too long because they're going up, so he trips on his own tunic, on his own clothes, and it hampers his steps, and he stumbles and he falls on his knees and gets up, and he hurts himself where he was already wounded. And at one point he seems completely intoxicated, and as if he's a drunken sailor. He sways to and fro. He knocks against the soldiers on the one side and then the soldiers on the other side. And he wanders all over the road. And the people notice it and shout, his doctrine has gone to his head. Look, look, how he staggers. And then others say, oh no, that is basically what they somehow try to say is he has had too much wine in the house of Lazarus last night with the Passover supper. And Longinus, who is feeling very sorry for Jesus, orders them to stop. He says that this procession should stop for a while and they should take a rest. Okay, let me rumble my papers now and find the right page. And then as they stop, the shepherds appear. There are the shepherds again, the ones who were there at the time of the birth of Jesus. They have also run up the hill, and because they're used to running up hills and they're strong, although many of them are older now. And they have staffs with them, and they are used to defending themselves and their animals with those staffs. So they are keeping the crowd away by hitting around them. And but it just encourages Jesus enormously to just see them. But then he falls again, and he falls headlong. He knocks his face on the stones, and he just remains in the dust on the floor. And they think basically that he's dead. And the crowd starts to scream, make sure that he dies only on the cross, because the law prescribes that the prisoner should not die before. You remember, they were afraid they would whip him to death. And then they said, if you let him die beforehand, they say to Longinus, you will answer to the proconsul. Bear that in your minds. The culprit must arrive alive at the execution place, say the chief scribes to the soldiers. The latter cast withering glances at them, but discipline prevents them from speaking. But Longinus is just as afraid as the Jews that the Christ may die on the road, and he does not want to have any trouble. And he realizes he has to take action. And so they walk a little further, and then they run into the women, all the Marys, Mary of Magdalene, Martha, Mary, the mother of Jesus, and there were other Marys in the company. An aunt of Jesus was called Mary. And the women are weeping, and they're veiled. And there's also many of the Roman women that he knew and who were his followers. They have gone up the hill, and they are waiting for the procession to come there. And they approach Jesus, and they weep, and they kneel at his feet. And although he's completely out of breath, he manages to smile at them. And one of them is Joanna of Cusa, the man who works in the wife of the man who works for Herod in the palace. And she offers Jesus a drink. She has a little jar with her, but he refuses. And then there's another woman who has a little casket with her that she opens, and she takes out a very fine linen cloth, and she offers it to Jesus, and he accepts it. But he cannot manage it by himself with one hand only, so she helps him to take it to his face, watching not to knock against the thorns of the crown. And Jesus presses the cool linen cloth to his face and holds it there, as if he felt a great relief. And then Valtorta mentions all the names of the women who are there, and there are many, there are really many women. Some of them we know from the Bible, they mentioned once or twice, some we've never heard of, but they were all followers of Jesus. Jesus actually speaks to them and mentions their names one by one. He mentions them by name. And he says, mothers, weep for your sons, because this hour will not pass without punishment. And what a punishment it is for the innocent. You will weep then for having conceived, having more sons. The mothers of those days will weep, because I solemnly tell you that he will be lucky who then will be the first to fall under the ruins. So he foretells the destruction that is going to follow, and he is worried about their children. I bless you, go home, pray for me. Goodbye. And then he tells Jonathan, who is accompanying the women, Jonathan, take them away. And so now he is completely wet with perspiration, and the soldiers think that when they put a rope around his neck, that will help him keep more steady. But of course, so they hold him as if he were an animal, but this rope hurts him more, of course. But But some women, they don't go home, by the way. They stay. Mary and Martha, the sisters of Lazarus. Mary, his aunt, and Mary, who is another family member. Susanna from Cana, and the woman who owns the house where they had the Last Supper. They're all there to be with Jesus' mother. And Mary, his mother, tries to, push her way through the soldiers to reach Jesus. But then the crowd again says that they should keep this woman away from him because they should be quick. It is Easter tomorrow. Everything must be accomplished by this evening. You are accomplices who deride our law. Oppressors, death to the invaders and to their Christ. They love him. Look how they love him. Well, take him. Put him in your cursed eternal city. We surrender him to you. We don't want him. Let rotters be with rotters and leprosy with lepers. So they see the foreign women, and then they start to scream at the soldiers that they should hurry and that they can just take Jesus, who is, after all, Jewish. So Longinus gets tired, and then he just he drives into the crowd because he gets tired of their heckling, and that is how he finds the man from Cyrene, who ends up carrying the cross for Jesus. He tells the man who is there sitting on his cart with vegetables, and he says, look, you are strong, why don't you help carry the cross? And so that is where Simon of Cyrene comes into the picture, and he carries the cross the rest of the way. And Mary again, she comes to Jesus. Now he is unburdened by the cross, and she moans, and she kind of talks to him, saying son, and he answers mother, and that seems to really move the Roman soldiers a lot. And even the man from Cyrene feels a lot of pity for this mother and her son, who have so much love for each other and have to see how each of them is suffering. And Jesus smiles at Mary, although, smiling has become almost impossible because he's so wounded. And he sends her a kiss with his lips. So now he can walk by himself. Jesus removes the cord from his neck, and there's a whole lot more text here, but I have to skip that. And so they walk up the hill, and we arrive at the top of Golgotha, and where again the crowd comes, and this time they insult the mother of Jesus, screaming, "Death to the Galileans, death! Galileans, curse them, death! Death to the Galilean blasphemer! Nail on the cross also the mother that bore him." They actually say womb, but they mean the mother, the woman that bore him. "Away from here, the vipers that gave birth to demons. Death to them. Clear Israel of the females who copulate with the billy goat." So now they accuse Mary of giving birth to a demon. And again, Joanna of Cusa comes and tries to give Jesus something to drink, but he doesn't want. And then they are at the top of, like I said, they're at the top of Golgotha, and the crucifixion follows. And I will tell you about that in the next video. This was Nelly, Ordinary People, Saintly Souls. Thank you for joining me in this horrifying journey, and I hope to see you in the next video.